Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fintech Times. We are here at Sibos 2022 in lovely Amsterdam. I'm very lucky to be joined right now by Martijn Stoker of JP Morgan Payments. Martijn, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you very much.
Good. What are you making of Sibos so far?
It's very busy, fantastic conversations with a lot of our clients, with a lot of our suppliers. Just generally a super dynamic environment and good fun as well.
Good fun as well, yeah. It's fantastic to be here. I think it's the first event they've held since 2019.
I think 2019 was the last one in person.
Yes. Yeah. So it's good to be with people and not no Zoom cameras inside. So That's really good. Before we get on to our conversation today, why don't you give our viewers just a bit of an insight into yourself and your position at JP Morgan Payments?
Absolutely, happy to. My name is Martijn Stoker. I run the regional EMEA Liquidity and Account Solutions team, based out of London, covering the whole EMEA region, everything to do with liquidity products like pooling and sweeping, but also balance sheet management. The account solutions is interesting around the physical accounts, but also the virtual account solutions, and we also cover the escrow business on the top of that.
Well, fantastic. Thank you very much for that introduction. So in terms of liquidity management, I mean, can you tell us a bit more about your solutions and what they're hoping to rectify?
No, certainly. Look, liquidity management is always very important, right? Whether you work in an oil company or whether you work in a fintech. Don't forget that, every payment starts and ends with a liquidity position. Right, so managing your liquidity properly is super important, especially now, given the macroeconomic environment where rates are going up. Right? If you need to lend it from a bank or somewhere else, it's generally more expensive compared to if you source the liquidity internally. Right? So that's often a discussion we're having with a lot of our clients in how can you most effectively, first of all, get insights in where your liquidity sits. Secondly, around how do you concentrate, how you make sure you get everything together, right? How can you control that liquidity? And then after that, obviously, is how do you optimize your liquidity? Because having too much is not a good idea, and having not enough is certainly a problem.
Yes, and you mentioned that you were based out of London. Obviously, JP Morgan Payments is a global company, but in London specifically, we're seeing great economic turmoil at the moment. Not just for businesses, but for personal families as well. And it's a very tense situation where limits are being stretched in a way, but budgets are very much being stretched. Then it's a very fresh topic, I think, in the fact that it's quite localized to the UK. But in that perspective, have you noticed any immediate changes to what your clients are demanding from your solution?
Yes, and I don't think it's that local actually. I think we see it across the globe, right? Where rates are going up, liquidity is getting tighter. It's not a crunch, but it's certainly getting tighter. And we see a lot more focus these days on liquidity management again, right? So how can they be smarter with the cash that they hold in hand? And we help and kind of advise our clients what kind of different products that they can use that actually build a solution in solving some of their issues. Right? At the end of the day, it's kind of a building block to provide different alternatives for our clients, right? Whether they're in the financial institution space, whether they're in the corporate space, fintech space. At the end of the day, they all run a treasury activity, right? So they all need to be smart in the way they manage their cash positions and find the optimal way to get that cash together.
Have you noticed any disparities between the EMEA region and other regions, for example, like the North American region?
Generally, there are some subtle differences, right? I think in the North America region, it's super dominated by US dollar positions, obviously. Here in EMEA, mostly euro, but you have a lot of other currencies. And in APAC, it's a little bit more dispersed because you have multiple currencies that are kind of key, like Aussie dollar, Japanese yen, Sing dollar. Some markets are a bit more stricter in their regulations in how you can offshore the funds, which makes it more difficult. And there are some specifics around how markets operate, right? While in the US, you still have a lot of check usage with lockboxes. While here in Europe, that's much less. And in APAC, I think they're slowly moving ahead with their faster payments programs, like we see here in Europe and North America as well.
Fantastic. In terms of like corporate treasury management teams, have you noticed that their attitudes have changed to how they're managing their solutions and how they're applying those of JP Morgan Payments?
Yes, certainly. We see a shift in the way not only the treasuries operate, but also how a lot of these corporates operate. You clearly see a change in their operating models, where in the past it was mostly business to business type of activity, and it's slowly changing into a business to consumer, right? So directly to their buyers, so to say. And that has a big impact on corporate treasury activities, where in the past you could do one single payment or one single transaction, income and credit, a bit easier to manage. And now with going straight to the consumer, they suddenly need to manage thousands of transactions. So there's a fundamental shift in the way our clients operate. And that's of course where you see a lot of the fintech activities, right, in that space, with the third-party payment providers jumping in. And as a corporate treasurer, you then need to think about, okay, how do I manage this new situation?
So you've outlined these changing attitudes from these treasury teams. How are these solutions of JP Morgan Payments adhering to that trend?
Yeah, it's a good question. In the past, you would see a corporate treasurer focus on, as an example, right? You have a physical cash concentration where you flow up the funds from the different countries, from the different operating entities, flowing it into a single location, and that's when the treasurer could do something with their corporate cash, right? Now that cash can be commingled with client cash, right? So you're going from corporate cash to retail cash. And so you don't need to only know who your clients are, it's treated differently as well. And that's what we call third-party money, right? So it's not the corporate client's cash, it's a third party, so it's their client's cash. And for us in the banking space, that creates an interesting new dynamic where you need to start splitting the corporate cash position and the retail cash position, so the third party money position. So what we've been doing over the last few years is really changing the way our systems operate, whereby we can club multiple products, if I call it that, right, where you have kind of a virtual account solution which is able to provide the reconciliation of all these thousands of incoming transactions, have them flow into a single account, have them flow up into a broader notional pool structure as an example, and then split it between the corporate cash that goes into one part of an investment and the other part of the cash, the retail cash, that has to be held for safeguarding purposes, right? So, and I think if you ask what has been the biggest change, then that's probably it for a lot of our corporate clients in how they segregate the corporate funds from the retail funds.
And how do you see the role of fintech within liquidity management?
I think on two sides, right? First of all, the technology they provide to clients and consumers is absolutely fantastic, right? I mean, we're a user of a lot of that fantastic technology as well, right? And I think secondly is the fact that even a fintech company needs treasury activity, right? So even a fintech company has both their corporate cash flow and they have their retail cash flow. So it's kind of both.
Do you have
two sides to a coin?
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I was going to ask, do you have any predictions for what liquidity management needs will look like once the economy sort of becomes more steady?
Yeah, well, we've gone through these cycles before, right? So you have a raising rate cycle, coming down of rates. It kind of balances it out over time. I think the biggest change that's here to stay is a change in technology, right? So what we really see is a move towards kind of a 24/7 real-time liquidity. And that fits in really nicely with real-time payments. Right? You can do now real-time payments during bank holidays, as an example, right? But that's exactly when the financial markets are closed. So how do you fund your account that actually holds the main pot of cash to do these transactions? So that's where the industry is very rapidly moving towards, kind of a 24/7 liquidity, where you don't have to hold that much collateral with the real-time payment providers anymore, because you can fund it off market times. So that's really where you see the whole industry slowly move towards.
Fantastic. Well, what a fantastic insight. In terms of more specifically your attendance at Sibos, I mean, I've seen JP Morgan Payments is sort of right in the center of the floor, surrounded by all these fantastic companies. I was just wondering, what were you hoping to achieve from your attendance at Sibos this year?
Well, we're a big bank, right? We are a top player here in Europe. We are a key liquidity provider. We have great connections with a lot of financial institutions that are here, with a lot of the technology companies that are here. So part of it is relationship management, obviously. Great to see so many clients and so many people in person again, especially after COVID. It's fantastic to be back in person again. And I think that's kind of the main value add of an event like this.
Well, that's fantastic. It's been really, really great to speak to you, Martijn Stoker. And I wish you all the luck in Sibos 2022.
Thank you very much.
Hopefully I'll have time to visit your stall when I get a break from this. But yeah,
you should check it out.
Yeah, that'd be great.
A lot of information around the connected cars as well, right? Which is around creating an ecosystem for clients where you can do the real-time payments and real-time data and information sharing through kind of the car ecosystem.
Fantastic.
It's pretty cool.
Well, thank you very much for sitting down with us today, and catch up with you again soon.